Good evening. I'm Maria and I'll be chairing the meeting today. It looks like we have a quorum to start our meeting on Monday, April 14th, 2025. I'd like to take roll call. Doug Gaffney.
He is not here just yet.
Justin.
Here.
Nita.
Nita will not be joining us.
Sean.
Here.
Gina.
Here.
Arsenio.
Here.
I'm here, Dr. Mejorado. Pretty.
Here.
And Jennifer Morgan.
Jennifer will not be joining us.
All right, student liaisons, John Amir.
Here.
Marley Lee.
Here.
Zach.
Here.
And Raven.
Here.
And Ksenia.
Here.
All right. So first order of business here will be the student information update. So if we could start with John Amir from Early College Academy.
All right, hello everyone. My name is, as many of you know, I'm John Amir Appleton, for the representative for ECA. So from March 17th through the 20th was CASP testing week for the juniors. Juniors took the state assessment for math, science, and English. For everyone else, we had a week without workshops. Progress reports were sent home the week of March 24th. We've had 3 college field trips this month to UC Davis, Sierra College, and Sac State. We have one more next month at ARC. April 7th through April 11th, we had prom. So prom was like last Saturday. Prom Spirit Week, leading into prom on the 12th. The prom theme was the Italian Renaissance. I got prom royalty. April 15th is Multicultural Festival hosted at Star Academy. April 16th through April 25th will be spring break. April 28th through April 30th is the Multicultural Spirit Week. Black Rock Campus will host a multicultural rally on the 29th, and ECA will be hosting a multicultural potluck on the 30th. And that looks like it.
Okay, great, thank you so much. All right, Marley Lee from Leading Edge.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. So starting off strong, we have the girls soccer tryouts that was on March 13th. We had an ASB moving night, which was on March 28th. We have spring break coming up the 16th through the 28th, and STEM night coming up the 27th as we come back. 8th grade DC field trip is going to be happening while we are leaving. The first meeting was March 27th, and all 8th graders got an email if they're accepted into SECA or IB, which is programs at Intercom. And 6th grade had a field trip to the Carker Art Museum on March 19th. So now our upcoming events are our first varsity soccer game, which was on last week on Tuesday. It was against Bannock Creek. The girls had a great win, and the boys had a great win as well. The Chomas Charter annual blood drive is going to be on Thursday, May 22nd. Leap E-Waste fundraiser started this week. Our 8th grade DC trip is going to be on the 20th to the 25th. Our field trip for the 8th graders to observe local art murals downtown is going to be on April 30th. Academics, we have trimester 3. Progress reports have gone out on April 10th. Portfolio for 8th graders is going to be happening on May 8th to 9th, and we had CASP testing the 7th to the 10th.
Thank you very much. Okay, next from PFAA, Zach.
Hello everyone, here's some updates from PFAA. Okay, on the 27th, we had Hip Hop Goes Global. This was DJ Chief XL. He came to our campus. He was formerly a part of the group Black Delicious. He worked with our students and hosted a workshop on making beats. He played a set at lunch and then participated in a panel along with other local hip hop artists. This was hosted by our senior Treasure Tatum. She also hosted a lunchtime celebration of hip hop. She worked hard to choreograph many pieces and featured many students in these performances. The 31st through the 1st of April was Also, Cal Soap College Planning Presentations. A speaker from Cal Soap came to junior history classes and explained many financial aid opportunities for college. I found this very interesting and helpful. On the 4th was the American Artist Gallery. 11th grade visual artists ended this year-long project by presenting their art, including painting, ceramics drawing, and they welcome you to the American Arts Gallery. Hairspray closed on April 5th. We ended our 7-show run. We also had our American Artist Performance Rehearsal on the 7th, and cast testing, which was 8th and 11th graders taking the California Science Test. The 7th through the 8th was senior project presentations, and the 11th was field day. Also on the 11th was Pulses and Echoes, a spring jazz and percussion instrumental concert. The day after that, we had our amazing prom, Italian Renaissance. Juniors, seniors, and their guests spent the night dancing, eating, and making many memories. The 14th and the 15th, starting today. I skipped that. The 14th and the 15th, 8th graders presented their portfolios for their panels in order to promote to high school. The 14th and the 15th, 11th grade artists end this year-long project by presenting their performances, including singing, dancing, spoken word, and welcoming you to the American Arts Showcase. We have part 2 tomorrow. The 16th through the 27th is spring break. And then we have a multicultural assembly and rally coming back, 28th and 29th. Students will learn about world cultures and experience live performances from students. The first and the second is the Iridescence instrumental performance. Band levels 1, 2, and 3 will perform on Thursday, and strings levels 1, 2, and 3 will perform on Friday. Then lastly, we have our open house. Prospective students will explore all the programs and opportunities we offer. Thank you.
All right, from Pat, we have Raven.
Hello, my name is Raven Young, and I'm the student representative from PACT Academy. On March 7th, PACT held a Nutrition Day. Activities included kids cooking their own food, eating unique delicacies, and fun prizes. On March 11th, PACT hosted Parent Coffee Talk on a topic serving the whole child. On March 12th, PACT held a middle school social from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. with a disco party theme. Activities included karaoke, where kids were able to sing along to their favorite songs with their friends, games, and snacks that were donated from the PACT community. On March 17th through 27th, PACT 3rd through 8th graders took their yearly CAST testing. On March 28th was PACT Fitness Day for grades 5th through 7th. Activity included an enthusiastic stretch session led by Miss Sharon, push-ups, curl-ups, trunk lift, and flexibility test. The mild run was rescheduled for May 2nd due to cloudy weather. April 1st was the PACT Reading Challenge Pizza Party. Students who participated in the goal of reading 150 books were treated to a celebration pizza party. On April 2nd, PACT took a field trip to the Hairspray Student Rush at PFAA. Students loved the performance and said the cast was incredible. And students got to see alumni from PACT in the play. They were wonderful. On April 4th, PACT went to the Woodland field trip. Activity included 2 fun nature hikes at Callaway Ranch and Woodland Regional Park. April 7th through 10th, PACT held a paper pie book fair to raise funds for the new library books. Students were able to pick out their own books and fun mini science experiments too. April 11th was the Muir Woods field trip. Activity included a tour of the woods and a hike with your guardian along the trail. Let's get into our upcoming events. April 15th will be PACT Coffee Talk, Parent Coffee Talk, on the topic Healthy Habits. On May 2nd is going to be Fitness Field Day and mile run at North Natomas Regional Park from 8:45 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. And on May 2nd, PACT is hosting a PBIS movie event. Thank you all for listening and have a good night.
from Star Academy, Ksenia.
Hello, Natomas Charter Board members. My name is Ksenia Patricia, and I'm a fifth grader at Star Academy. I'm excited to share our school's updates for April. First up, we had a surprise leprechaun visit our younger grades. On St. Patrick's Day, they sprinkled green glitter and left green footprints around the classrooms. Students made traps to try to catch the leprechauns. Also, we had our spring book fair. Students bought things like books, pencils, and posters. They also entered the raffle to get mood rings. I bought a Wings of Fire book, which is a graphic novel. Next, first and second graders had a theater field trip. The show they saw was about Pete the Cat. Pete the Cat is a fictional character from a book. Another important event we had was Spring Picture Day. Students dressed up for their pictures and had their class pictures taken with their teachers. We had our monthly PBIS assembly where we talked about state testing and iReady testing. There were also some MAPA performances with students reading monologues. Then staff and students came to school on a Saturday to clean up our Star Academy garden. An ECA senior planted 3 new trees at Star Academy's field for a senior project. Star Academy is dedicating the garden to our former lead custodian, Francisco Ortega. Another event that happened in April was Neurodiversity Week that was planned by our inclusive education team. We had a spirit day with dress-up days and classroom activities. Today at Star, 4th graders had a touch of understanding on site assembly to learn about acceptance and understanding of disability. Last year, I participated in this event and we learned about blindness, we learned how to write in Braille, and we saw prosthetic limbs and much more. Finally, please join us at Star Academy from 5 to 8 p.m. tomorrow, April 15th, to celebrate the anniversary of our NCS community. The NCS community made the multicultural festival including music, and dance performances, cultural booths, food trucks, and there will be boba. My family is hosting a booth to celebrate our Ukrainian culture. We'll be handing out Ukrainian candy. Hope to see you there. Thank you for listening to my Star Academy update. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your reports and your updates, and we wish you the best and restful and fun spring break. I wanted to mention that Doug is with us now.
Yes,
So I'd
thank you.
like to.
Becky has joined.
All right, so, is there any hearing of the public for items on the closed session agenda?
Nothing received with me. Let me check online. Nothing online.
All right, so we're gonna adjourn to a closed session to consider and/or take action upon any of the following. Public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code 54954.2. Administrative representatives, do I mention that as well? Yes, Dr. Joe Wood, Executive Director, Evaluation and Employment. So I'd like to adjourn this meeting at, 5:45. And I guess we'll resume
When you're done.
when we're done. All right, thank you very much. Wow. Let me take a look at it. No roll call, okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and reconvene from open session, and there was no further action taken. And we're going to start the meeting at 6:28. All right. Let's see, so let's go ahead and approve the agenda. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
Motion.
And that is Doug, and we have a second.
Who was the second? I said Gina, thank you.
Okay, all right, let's go ahead and vote. Pretty?
Yes.
Gina? Yes. Maria, myself, yes. Justin?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Arsene?
Yes.
All right. Now for consent items, can I have a motion for approval of the consent items? Okay, Justin
I second.
and Pretty. All right, let's go ahead with Pretty
Yes.
and Gina. Myself is a yes. Justin
Yes.
and Doug,
Yes.
Sean
Yes.
and Arsenio.
Yes.
All right, so now we're getting to action items. Item number 1, the approval of the 2025-26 health and welfare contribution increase. Anita?
Yes, so back in January, February, Zebra and Joe had done a very lengthy comp study. And as of taking that information, the next 2 items, this is the first of 2 items that we are moving towards taking action on the response for these things. So in an effort to address the rising costs of the medical premiums, and after analyzing the comp study, we're proposing to increase our monthly health and welfare contributions. So in your packet, we have a 4-tier system. So it's employee plus dependent, employee plus child or children, and then family coverage. So the previous, or current, I should say, contributions are listed in the first column. And the proposed rates are there. So you might wonder why it is kind of a weird proposal. It's $1,071 or so. In looking at this, we really wanted to be consistent with trying to at least cover employee, the lowest HMO employee medical coverage plus single dental and single vision. And so that adds up based on this year's rates to $1,071. And a couple of years ago, we had increased the family already by $200. So we're proposing just to keep that the same since there was a large increase just a couple of years ago. So this is just to make sure that our employees can get medical, dental, and vision, so at least single coverage paid for by the employer.
And this is a net cost of about
318 rounded, 318,000.
Any questions? Comments? So can I have a motion?
I'll motion.
All right, Doug will motion and a second.
I second.
All right, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote with Pretty.
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Myself, Maria, yes. Justin?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And Arsene?
Yes.
All right, so Anita, you're on again for the approval of the 2025-26 revised salary
So
schedule.
part 2 of the comp study action is we are bringing forward some revised salary schedules for the new year for 25-26 as we're looking on. We're proposing a 1% increase across the board. This would be an estimated cost of $213,000. Also, employees would still get their step movement as well as column adjustment, and that's estimated to be another $253,000 for that cost. And so these are pretty much all of our salary schedules planning as we're building the budget for next year, with the exception of the stipend addendum. We'll be bringing that back as we study a little bit more school-wide for consistency on the stipend amounts.
So that would be an additional 1%?
1% for added for all salary schedules on there. And the attachments there include the increased prices.
So just to reiterate what Anita said, everyone would already get their step and column adjustment, which is about a net $353,000. And then they would get an additional 1% on top of that, which is the extra $213,000.
Okay,
Combined then with the health and welfare benefit increases you just approved.
right.
So for, depending where people are at on the salary schedule, the health and welfare benefit increases you just approved are net like 2.5% to 5% increase, depending where they're on the salary schedule. And then this would be a 1% plus the additional step and column, which is on average about 2.5%.
All right, and may I have a motion to approve this revised salary schedule?
I motion to approve.
Okay,
second.
Brittany and Gina. All right, okay, so go ahead and start with Brittany.
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Maria, yes. Justin?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And our senior. Okay, so that looks like that passed. We're good. Ready to move on to item J, discussion and presentations, which we'll start with Leading Edge and the Academy update by Vasa and Joanna.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Hello.
Hello, thank you. I'm Joanna Williams. I'm the 8th grade STEM teacher.
I'm Boss Lockstep, principal of Leading Edge. Good to see everyone this evening.
At Leading Edge, we like to start with celebrations, like when bumblebees see flowers in the spring garden. We celebrate at every PD, at every staff meeting, every time we collaborate, as well as just in general, we like to celebrate. Some of the celebrations are we have 165 student athletes, 20 ASB leaders, 22 web leaders. We have a yearbook club that has 15 students, 16 students on the media team, 20 students in BSU, 18 taiko drummers, and more. We also have an average GPA of 3.3. High honor students, there's 114 of them, and 56 honor students, as well as this year we've reclassified 9 EL students. These are our pillars, and also we'll go into a little more detail.
So continuing the theme of celebration through the lens of our pillars are the foundation of our academy, our instructional pillars. They represent our values, what we believe as educators, and we integrate them into every project and every activity we do. So we'll keep clicking through the next slides here. In diversity and equity and inclusion, of course, we got multicultural lens, but also going a little bit deeper with students to understand bigger themes on socioeconomics and the historical context they live within. Active global citizenship, pushing our students out into the community, whether they're putting their art up in a local coffee shop or competing in our new World Culture Bowl. Joyful learning, continuing to demonstrate that we learn through an intrinsic motivation, just for the joy of learning, not necessarily the grades, as represented in our Dia de los Muertos activities. Critical media literacy, a huge component of our projects, especially as students get into 8th grade. We're pushing them to do things like our C-SPAN project, understanding social issues that impact them, as well as identifying unsung heroes that they have to look deep within the literature to find. And continuing to innovative thinking, whether it's our pedagogy with interactive learning structures or the things that we do outside to keep kids engaged and off their cell phones. I would like to highlight in our library staff just briefly, when we rolled out the new cell phone policy this year, of course, we hit some bumps in the road, and they decided to display a bunch of old school technology through the decades in here, which was pretty fun. And the cell phone policy has actually gone quite smoothly since that time. Collaboration, that picture on the right is our math night. We had a bunch of families here engaging in math curriculum and instruction and learning how to do intervention at home for their kids, their students. And of course, we celebrate these pillars 3 times a year at our Pillar Awards Assembly, where kids are recognized for their achievement in our pillars and attendance. Last time I presented, I think we wanted some attendance recognition, so we've been doing that every trimester at the Pillar Award ceremony.
Our first academy goal this year was strong, rigorous instruction with a literacy focus. And so our goal was to build strong literacy instructional practices across all curriculums and all content areas to not only improve ELA scores, but also math scores. And so some of the ways we do that is to leverage our support staff within the classroom by developing different program needs for the tier 2 and 3 students. We also align our 6 to 8 literacy curriculum. So the teachers will align and will think about their changes and then move on from there to make iterative changes as needed. We'll also integrate common literacy practices across all disciplines. And then we also have been focusing on common literacy practices in mathematics.
So I'll give you just an example of what this looks like in the area of intervention. This year, we started a new intervention program where any student that tested at 2 or more grade levels below in reading got what we call secondary screeners. So they sat down with an educator, they did a fluency assessment, how fast you read, the prosody, the intonation, and also a phonics assessment. So by middle school, we assume kids have phonics, they're both basic phonemic awareness. That's not the case. Actually, we identified 15 students who still needed direct phonics instruction. It's about 7 or 8% of our population. And then we started a new program to support that. We also had some parent literacy nights. And then the teachers are continuing to iterate on their curriculum through this Plan, Do, Study, Act framework where they collect data on their instruction and a new strategy or focus they're using. And then they either adopt it, shift it, or abandon it based on its effectiveness. But we want to show you some of the data on those 15 students.
So of those 15 students, their initial diagnostic in August, these 15 were all below by 3 or more grade levels. And then over the course of those months up to January, those students grew by 1, 2, and 3 grade levels. So you can see that has kind of pushed those students up towards the top.
Yeah, so about half of those students grew at least 1 grade level in 5-6 months. And we had a couple that grew more than that, that was pretty cool results. In the area, the other academy goal this year has been to focus on positive behavior interventions and supports. It's PBIS, all the rock posters that you see up. And that's a whole system of behavior that help kids feel safe, create predictable environments, and ensure that everybody's speaking a common language on campus. And year 1, is that you? Me. Year 1 was all about clarity around campus-wide norms. That's this year. And then shifting over to this 5-to-1 positive to corrective philosophy. Because in education, unfortunately, and sometimes in life, we're trying to find things that people are doing wrong and correct those. PBIS is about flipping that and saying, we want to identify the things people are doing right. So the students are being reinforced that, oh, okay, I'm meeting expectations, I'm doing the right thing. And that's coupled with a pretty robust reward system, the rock tickets, and we have we've had rock breakfasts, rock lunch, we have a rock cart that goes out where they can buy things off the cart. And then that's continuous training to ensure that staff are implementing that with fidelity, because it's another initiative that can kind of get watered down if we don't keep beating the PBIS drum. Year 2, we're gonna move over to more robust behavior interventions and then send a new team out for training we went to PCOE, Placer County Office of Education. They have a pretty good training for our staff.
So as mentioned, we have our rock tickets that we hand out on a daily basis. We have the rock matrix up everywhere around the school, and so teachers are able to reference it in their classrooms or just in the hallway as needed. And then of course, rock stands for responsibility, ownership, collaboration, and kindness. And then here I think is one of, I don't know if that was a breakfast or.
I think that was like one of the first breakfasts that we had, yeah.
Where they have all of their rock tickets.
Mm-hmm.
So you heard in a previous board meeting about the 5 pillars of the mathematics program, which we start with our CPM curriculum, which is our core curriculum. And this year we started reading Building Thinking Classrooms, and we went to a conference. And so we're kind of implementing that pedagogy as we go. We also do a lot of differentiated station rotations in our math classes, and we use the iReady tools pretty frequently, as well as the instruction and then the diagnostics. And this year we're starting to build out our Math Facts and Fluency program. And so here's just one of the things that we do is tutoring after school. This is a snapshot of some 7th graders who took tutoring in between August and January. So out of, I don't remember exactly how many students this was, but the blue is the initial diagnostic. And then, then over the course of the time, we can see that some of those students moved up to honor above grade level, and our lower kind of dropped there, so the orange is the second.
Yeah.
And so as I mentioned, we're doing building thinking classrooms, so we intend to fully implement that in the next school year. And then again, also our facts and fluency program, which we've been building on.
So that kind of rounds out our presentation. You know, we're here in April. We're like salmon swimming upstream. You know, we got a lot of obstacles on our way, but we do have some special times to celebrate. So if you're available between 1:20 and 2:40, we'll be having our Greek Olympics out on the blacktop in the fields. You imagine a bunch of little sixth graders running and throwing discus with wreaths on their heads. It's a good time if you want to stop by and see some leading edge action.
Any questions or comments?
For the diagnostic, was it the same test, like same questions or different?
Yeah.
How was that?
So iReady basically starts at grade level standards, and they're not the same questions every test, and then it adapts for how the student is doing. So if they're answering grade level standards with accuracy, it will actually bump them up to a higher grade level. Same thing if they're not answering accurately, it'll lower the standard to and that's how they get placed at either a lower or higher grade level. So it's different and it adapts while they're taking it.
Awesome.
But the same standards. So ideally, they're still you're comparing apples to apples.
Yep, awesome. You said year one, the clarity around campus-wide norms.
Mhm.
What were those norms?
What are the norms now or previously?
Both.
Yeah. So responsibility, ownership, collaboration, and kindness are the three essential elements of ROC. And then with PBIS, what you do is you identify clear expectations in each area on campus. So teachers, students, staff, even sometimes parent input, we identify how do we want our students to behave in hallways and during transitions? What does that look like? And that way, when we develop common language, say like safe bodies, safe words, something like that, it becomes more about the agreement that we've made to uphold these norms and values rather than a conflict between two people, which oftentimes, especially through the lens of a middle schooler, they view it as conflict. So that's why that common language is very important. So we have like that one over there is the main ROC matrix, and then this one's the library one. So you can see under ownership, it says only water should be consumed in LMC, and they're always in positive statements. And then for a kid, it's water only in the LMC. It's on the poster, sorry. Yeah, so.
Parent input, what do you guys do? Like,
yeah, so that's a great idea, great question. Right now, just through survey data, however, in a more robust PBIS system, you would have a parent sitting on the PBIS team. So I think in the second and third year, that's something we really need to consider is having a parent and a student sitting on the PBIS teams and to really fully build it out.
Cool.
That raises a question for me. Do you offer any like cactus with open coffee clutch where parents can come
Coffee
in?
with Prince cup.
Yeah, coffee with
Yeah, we've had lots of coffee talks over the years, and then we recently rebuilt our elite parent group last year, and so that's been a really great source of parent connection and voice for us. Annie Kay's been leading that work, but it's not just her. There's been a lot of buy-in and growth in that area. So, and then next year, I think we were talking about having coffee talks together with PFAA as a way to make it a little bit more BlackRock focused.
All right. Well, any other comments or questions? Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation. All right, now we get to hear from Pat from Alicia Carter.
Hello, everyone. Happy April. Almost spring break. All right, so I'm going to piggyback on some of the things from Leading Edge, but at PACT Academy this year, our theme is BRAVE. And over on that campus, that's our PBIS acronym. So that stands for Bold, Responsible, Achievers, Vigilant, and Engaged. And so all of our kids are doing that work around those qualities. Go ahead. This is my staff this year. So we had a pretty stable, we retained all of our teaching staff from last year, and then we added the two gentlemen in the middle, Mr. Emerald and Mr. Beal, as our music and our digital arts, media arts specialists who are part-time with us. But lots of consistency, so that's been good. So just a couple of things, two big goals this year, just NCS-wide, we've really been talking about building strong school culture and strong, rigorous instruction. And so we'll talk about some of the ways that we're doing that, but we've really leaned in our culture with that PBIS, the positive behavior intervention supports, continue with family nights, field trips, workshops, all the things we do, and building our parent community. And then for instruction, we'll talk, when I break it down a little bit here, but just we expanded that Math and Literacy Foundations program from last year. Continue to lean into selecting really quality curricular materials for our families to use in home education. We had a huge focus this year with our parents on both skill building and gap filling. We continue to lead in other homeschool programs, in-person special education support, and then really working on our support plan from advisors. So, okay, so this is a little bit at our enrollment at a glance. Our enrollment is different every day in homeschool. It comes and goes. So the day I made these slides a few weeks ago, this is what we had. We had 119 kids enrolled. Right now, at this snapshot, our kindergartners were 14 kids. Our first through fifth was 63, so it's like our little elementary, and our middle school was 42 kids. The number in the right-hand column shows how many kids in those grade levels we served this year. So even though we had 63 kids in first through fifth grade enrolled when I made the slide, that we've served 93 kids in that. So that's that turnover. We actually have had 61 kids who have turned over at the course of this year. So our average daily attendance has been 120, but we've actually served 180 students at some point through the year. I've been tracking that really closely as part of our enrollment and marketing studies. And then that's just kind of a visual breakdown. No, you're fine. That's perfect. I'm ready. I've done a lot of parent surveys this year in small bites, asking a few questions here and there. And we, at the beginning of the year, we went through with all of our families and we talked to them about like what brought you to PAC, why are you coming here? And that's part of just, first of all, being just responsible about what we're doing, but also I'm trying to dive into that enrollment and retention piece, like what is bringing you through and how do we keep you? So these were the top answers. Support comes really high, which is that people appreciate not having to homeschool alone, to having somebody to do that with, and that's why they come to us. Community is really, really high. I hear both community for the kids, like we wanted to homeschool, but we didn't want to just be at home. We want our kids to be connected. But also for adults. I very often hear our parents say, like, I just love that I have a place and you guys set up spaces for me to come connect to other parents who are doing this thing. Our workshops are a huge draw, that they're all in-house and in-person. Our in-person special education services, which is a rarity for homeschool programs. Many are virtual. And as you can imagine, parents really value speech services where they can see the speech provider in real life, and any other service. And then joy comes up a lot, just a place where they want their kids to feel happy to come, to be excited to be there, and to do all those things. All right, see that. Sorry. No, you're okay. All right, so then the other thing, clearly we have a lot of turnover. So why do families leave? And we have been asking every family as they leave, where are you going? What you doing? What's up? Most of them have answered, and the few who don't, we make every effort to figure out where they next enroll and who picks them up. And so I only have a couple that I haven't been able to find. But for the most part, the top three areas I call largely economy-based or lifestyle-based choices. We lose most of our families to site-based school. We ask, and about, I don't know off the top of my head, a large chunk of those we actually lost to NCS Academy. We sent a lot of kids to Leading Edge, to PAC, or not to PAC, to Leading Edge, to PFAA, to Star Academy, even after the start of the year as spots went. So quite a few of our families are going there. The next highest group were to other site-based programs, largely in MP3, Westlake, and back to neighborhood school, where families just needed to put their kids back into school. A lot of times the reasons when we dig is that a parent has to go back to work and no longer can maintain the schedule they were doing, or all our state workers are heading back more and more in person, and while they were able to kind of support their kids from home, less and less can they do so. Or the economy is rough and they needed to go get another job or something like that. So those are largely things based on lifestyle and economy. And while we can support those, we tend to have less ability to impact that choice. That's outside of our control. The bottom two things are a little bit more what I call my competitors, right? And of the people who left to go to other homeschooling or independent study programs, most of them went to a fully virtual program where somebody's teaching their kid online, and that's definitely not what PACT is doing. So that's a different version of that independent study type. And then another group of them went to a competing homeschool placement. Thanks. So those are kind of our big ones. We take all that into account to say, like, all right, what are we going to do? How do we increase our enrollment? And actually, we've been talking about, hey, if every kid who had enrolled stayed, we wouldn't have an enrollment. We don't really have an enrollment problem, we have a retention problem, right? Like, how do we keep people once they find us? And so there's a few things. First of all, retention. And so streamlining our processes. One of the things that we find when parents leave PACT and go to another homeschooling program is that they don't like how many times they have to come to a meeting or how much paperwork they have to fill out. They want to go to a program that requires less accountability. I'm not willing to give on quality, so accountability is going to stay, but we are looking at, can we tweak a little bit about how paperwork gets turned in or how frequently you come in? And if you're doing all the things, can you come in less frequently? Or in families who need more support, come more frequently. So we're working on some plans to kind of tweak that and help families be more flexible. Parent input, we again, a lot of surveys, quarterly surveys. It's really focused on, like, what do you need? What do you want to feel connected? I've been posting those results in our family spaces so they can see what other parents are saying, following up with parents, and really talking about how we can adapt for what they're looking for. And we've also been asking the kids, like, what kinds of classes would you want to take? What do you love about being here? What makes you want to come here in the morning? So that's been really helpful. And then a couple of other things we've been working on, visibility in the community. So we've been exploring some new advertising avenues, places like theater production programs, going to sporting events, looking at dance studios and gymnastic studios. We've been working on a plan for next year to send staff out as an adjunct duty to, like, go sit on the soccer field and talk to the parents who are really busy about how homeschooling can free up hours in the evening. A lot of families are looking for something like that, which kind of ties into special programs. So we've been talking to a couple of youth sports organizations who have groups. We have a soccer group who is interested in maybe a group of families coming and helping each other homeschool so that they can free up time. The baseball organizations, the theater things. So we've been talking about, you know, your little Bruins and your little Tigers can come and play during the day with us and then go home and not have any homework to do so that you can totally just go do all the things that you want to do in your pursuits of passion. We also are sitting backstage in theater groups and sitting in the lobby at the gym, you know, and just kind of handing out cards and talking parents. We're sending some parents out to do that too. So I'm starting to recruit other parents. And our parents are very willing to talk positive things, but they don't always have the right words. So I've been starting to give them little scripts, like, here's your card, go say these things. Here's how they can call me if they have questions. On that note, no, not quite. So word of mouth, yeah, is just that increased parent focus groups to let our current families know, like, what is it that we're looking for? How can you help grow our program in our community? And then outreach. So inviting prospective families to our events, to our activities, come in and see what we do. Come visit during the day when the kids are there busy, and you can see what that looks like. And then just really being intentional with our parent activities. We have a teacher who's been running all year. She was just going to do it the first half of the year, a book club for parents, and it was really successful. And so she ended up, they said, please, let's do another book. And they're doing another one now. And it's a very tight core group of parents who are trying to also figure out, like, how do we mentor families when they come in and make it so that they feel more successful, don't get scared and burned out and walk out the door. Because it can be overwhelming to walk into a totally different lifestyle for your kids. All right, so we're gonna look at our 3 primary goals from our LCAP plan. The first goal was related to math, as all of our campuses are working on math. These are my adorable babies. So we had kind of 4 primary activities that we really leaned into. So the first one was expanding that 2-hour once a week math foundations workshop. Our kindergarten is still 1 hour, but everybody else 1st through 8th grade has a 2-hour block that they can come in now. And they're those have been full and well attended. Of all of our workshops, I wasn't really sure how that would go, and people signed up and they came. So that's been really, really successful. We had so many first and second graders sign up that we had to split it into 2 classes. So that was good. Positive attitudes up here. So we had a big I am a math person campaign, made a little sign, all the kids, if you walk down my hall, there's pictures of kids everywhere with I am a math person. And really just talking about that everybody's a math person. It might not be your favorite, but you use it, you rely on it. So make friends, like cozy up and be a buddy. And so we're really working on those positive attitudes, problem solving, real life based problems when they're in those workshops so that they can see a connection. Our curriculum, we continue to support families in pacing, and we really leaned in this year. All of my advisors filled out a form for each kid. We know which curriculum the family took home, and we're doing check-ins to see how, are we pacing appropriately, pulling it back out. Hey, we got stuck over here in this chapter, we got to move on. You got stuck in a gap, here are some materials to help with that. And trying to really make sure that families are utilizing the materials that they have. And then finally, we did this in both language arts and math, so you'll see it on both sides, but we piloted a new program that's called Conquer the CAS. And this year we did it kind of on an elective basis. Families said, yeah, we want to give it a try. It was an online program that allowed students to become familiar with the CAS testing platform and what questions look like, and engage with the like the mouse. How do I click on this? How do I drag things? Just some of those things to reduce test anxiety. But it also used grade level math content. And so it was also a review. And I can't wait to see. Well, we'll know in the fall. We'll do some correlating, like did the kids do that increase differently? If nothing else, it gave our kids some increased excitement and engagement, and reduced anxiety. When they went to come to the test, they were like, I know what this is, I know what I'm gonna see, and they felt very confident. Okay. So iReady math scores, we assessed in August with 2nd through 8th grade. We don't make the little guys take it in August, but in January, everybody took it. So there's more kids in the January, but you can see like the green zone went up, that's good. The red zone got smaller, that's good. The Yellowstone section stayed the same, but realistically it's kids from the red zone moving up into the yellow, and then kids from the yellow moving up into the green. So that's the direction we want to see. I'm really hopeful that when we do our early June test that we're going to see a little bit more in that one. Okay. So then our second goal was related to literacy. Again, a lot of the same types of things. We expanded that literacy foundations, and in our first and second grade foundations classes particularly, we put a high emphasis on phonics and basic reading skills to really get those kids having those strong foundational skills. Again, we had some additional screeners that we implemented this year with our advising students. So phonics screeners, fluency screeners, some various things to just get more data and dig a little deeper when a student isn't meeting those grade level standards in their iReady diagnostic. Where are those gaps happening, and how do we get the right tools to those families? And part of that is related to curriculum. We had a pretty significant increase in one particular curriculum. It's called All About Spelling. It's not a spelling curriculum. I don't know why they call it that. It's a phonics curriculum, which leads to good spelling. But it's an excellent program that's tactile based. It's really easy for parents to follow, and it's really getting some strong foundational phonics instruction into our younger students and our older students who are showing deficits in phonics. So we're really excited about that. And then also the Conquer the CAS in language arts. And then so our iReady reading scores, they started off a little bit better than math, but the same trend, that green is increasing, the red is decreasing. That is what we like to see. So, good times. All right, and then our third big goal was really increasing school attendance is NCSY. And I added on for PACT and engagement, because for us, attendance is all done on paperwork. So you can have great attendance and be really disconnected. But what we want is, are these families engaged? Because when you're engaged and connected, you're more likely to be successful. So our PBIS plan, as Vasa was mentioning, really focusing and amplifying what's going well. And so we get them so little that we don't want to spend all our time in corrective if we don't need to. We want to build up their skills and really make them feel connected. We had our Brave tickets. We've had student raffles, student events and recognition. It's been really, really successful, and we just leaned into the whole castle and knight theme to go with the brave, and so all of our events have been tied to that. It's my little Renaissance Fair friends. And then for the actual attendance numbers, it is all based on those lesson plans and work samples that are submitted. And so we've really increased early intervention. We're working on not having as much time go by before the paperwork is submitted so that we know sooner when people are struggling. And so we have some plans in place to continue to improve that. We did a quarterly recognition for families where you got our version of an attendance certificate. And that's always been a little weird for us, but what we did is, did you attend all your meetings? And if you came to all your meetings for the quarter, you got an attendance certificate. And the parents have been really proud because they're like, I did this. I brought my kids. Yes, you did. So that's been really fun. And then once a quarter we put all of the families who got that into a raffle and they get a family prize. So it's like a board game or a pass to a museum or something like that. Advising meetings, we've really worked on clear expectations, meeting deadlines, and then structuring personalized levels of support. Every family is unique, and what one family needs, nobody else needs, and vice versa. So it's always just finding that balance. And then, of course, our strength, I would say, is our community, but we're always refining. So more workshops or different workshops based on the kids we have. Our robust field trip program, if you're on our social media at all, Miss Jen just sends the kids everywhere, and it's amazing. They were hiking on Mount Tamalpais on Friday, so it was great. Our parent coffee talks, we have a small but mighty group of parents coming together and talking. Our parent book club I mentioned, and then doing just trainings and special events and our survey data. All right, so looking ahead, our goal is really growing our community, strengthening our community, and that comes down to two things: refining our practices and our community and connections. So we're really going to be working on refining instructional practices. For each of my staff members, about half of their job is teaching in workshops and about half of their job is coaching families. So we're going to lean into both those things, improving instructional practices and then working on coaching conversations with families and how to become, you're less a classroom teacher and more an instructional coach. And so how do we grow those skills? How do we have tough conversations with compassion? How do we help families find balance? We've been working on building our professional learning communities so that small groups of advisors are picking a problem, trying out a solution for a few weeks, bringing data back, sharing with each other about what was working, and then continuing to grow for our increasing population of students with exceptional needs. Our IP numbers are staying the same, but we're seeing a rise in the increase of our moderate to severe disabilities. And so really helping get teachers training when you're trying to coach a parent of a student with a significant disability to support that student at home. That's a lot of layers of support. And so you gotta have a lot of skills. We're working on that. And then for our community, we're just gonna continue with all of the things that build community and people love, and continue to expand parent groups. We are really recruiting some of our key parents to do some parent-led clubs and groups and really hand some of that over at peer mentorship, and then increase that presence in the community. All right, and there we all are, like ladies of the castle. That's it for me. So questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? The only question I have is, if you could say a little bit more about what kind of training would you offer the instructors on special ed? I mean, I get the teaching part, but what kind of training do you get on how to advise parents about their child?
It's really hard, right? Like a lot of it is getting them connected with community programs. So if you have a student with autism, how do you get connected to other homeschooling parents who are working with autistic students and strengthening that? But it's also learning about your child's disability and what works for them, and then teaching parents to be flexible thinkers. Very often, and this is the case even with my own students, your kids bring home homework and you're like, I don't know how to do it that way. I know how to do it the way I did it. That isn't going to work if your kid has a learning disability or a significant need. You have to learn the way they learn it, not the way. So it's a lot of building their capacity to understand different approaches. And then some of it is just training on instructional strategies and what it means to be a strong teacher, especially for a kid with a specific need. So it's a puzzle. Amy and I are working on with SCOE on some things. I've got, things out all over the place. I've been talking to a lot of other homeschooling programs to see what they're doing. it's not something of which there is a lot of good example out there. There are a lot of people trying good things, but there's not like a, hey, look at this thing, it always works, does not exist.
And so you have to, I mean, I get the social work aspect, finding and
Yeah.
connecting, but in terms of paying anybody to come in and train or?
Haven't found a trainer yet to just come in and train people to do that. But a lot of it too is attending professional development seminars. So we work closely with the county office.
Right.
And sometimes we've reached out to a couple places and said, like, I don't want to send my special ed teacher to your training. I want to send my gen ed teacher to your training because they're working with teachers.
Right.
They need to grow some skills on how to do that. So it's finding how to get to those things. Yeah.
Question, yeah, comments?
I like how you explain all the marketing, because that was one of the questions I was gonna ask, just because I've heard that, there's common discussion at the beginning of the year, so it's great to see all the things y'all are doing. As far as like the marketing, is that more or less to like maintain or grow to a certain capacity? And then like, what would that look like? I mean, right now, 119, I think I've seen higher,
Yeah.
you know, obviously, last year averages. So where would we ideally like to be at?
I'd love to be at 150.
Okay.
We haven't been at 150 post-COVID, like we had that spike and then all the programs in the world opened up and they got all the people spread out, right? And we kind of dropped down to that 140 and then the next year was about 130. Last year we were averaging 125 on any given day and today it was about 120 this year. So it's not going the right direction and we're doing some watching. There's a lot of very not friendly to independent study program legislation sitting out there that keeps tightening the reins and people are leaving. If they want to homeschool, they're saying we're out of here. We'll go do this in another state. They're really passionate. So there is that element, but we also think that we just got to capture the right people. When people find us and it's a good fit, they stay. So it's getting, and there are multiple families every year who walk in the door and they're like, man, we wish we had known this is what we needed 4 years ago. So we asked them, like, how could we get in front of other people like you to tell them sooner? Like, where would you have wanted to hear this? And so that's our big challenge. But for this next year, you know, I don't expect to be 150 overnight, but we would like to grow a little bit each year and get there. That would make me feel a lot happier. And I've been really talking to the staff. If of the 60 kids who came in and left, and some of those, don't get me wrong, they walked in the door and they were like, nope, this is not for me, and they were out again 3 minutes later, right? They went back to school, their parents realized quickly. But a chunk of those people did stay in homeschooling or in alternate programs. So how do we capture, you know, if we could keep half of those kids who had left, we would be at that 150. So, you know, let's aim for that and see where we can get. Fill it up.
Comments, questions? Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we get, Belonging and Access presentation by Laura and Petra.
You get double the joy in this presentation because we have brought two fabulous teacher leaders here. Karen Rojas from Star Academy and Jenny Valentine from Performing and Fine Arts Academy because they are leading a lot of this work. So you'll get to hear from them as well. So Petra, can we start?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you all tonight. So I want to just go ahead and address the elephant in the room, and those are the letters of DEI. So you may have heard that there's some feelings around those letters lately, but really at the heart of what DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's really providing a safe and welcoming space for all staff and all students. So tonight, Laura, myself, Jenny, and Taryn are going to walk you through kind of a comprehensive look of how we build safe spaces for our students and staff throughout NCS. We do know that Natomas Unified is the second most diverse school district in the country. And so we're really intentional, and you'll see that through our presentation tonight in terms of how we help build a sense of belonging and safety for our students and staff through curriculum, materials, the programmatic decisions that we make, and opportunities for our students and families.
All right, so as we know in education, the pendulum swings back and forth like a swing on a swing set, right? It's just back and forth, back and forth. If you've been in it long enough, you've seen that. One thing that does not swing is our pillars at Natomas Charter School. And so since our inception in '93, we have been very focused on the same thing. Education and the community and politics have called it different things over different times, but we are always firmly grounded in our pillars. We're making decisions with the students first in mind. What is best for the students? Right, we were just meeting with a group of people to choose a reading screener, which you'll be hearing about in the future. Oh, a little teaser there. But we were talking about what's best for students, right? And and then making sure that we're accountable, right? We're accountable to you, we're accountable to our students, to our community, to the parents, and to ourselves. So just keep in mind that as you hear the winds of change over our lifetimes, right? We're staying steady. If you go to the next one, please. And really, when you look at our shared beliefs, these are shared beliefs that the staff came up with, saying, what is it that makes Natomas Charter School Natomas Charter School? And, what are we trying to do in our community? And it's been the same thing since I came in 2000, right? It's belonging. We want every child to feel like they belong here, right? Natomas Charter School was originally formulated or put together to create opportunities for students that were not being served in the traditional system. That's why we have, Leading Edge. It was project-based, looking for those kids who are not doing well in the traditional system, right? Because the traditional system can't be everything to everyone, right? They try and it's really, really hard. So we built that. And then there was a need for homeschool, so we had a homeschool. So that is our mission, is to create those places for families and students that are not, fitting into that norm. So really, if you look at the first four there, that's what we've been doing for 30 plus years. So as you hear things, as you see things, just keep in mind, we just take care of kids. And that means you care for them no matter who they are, no matter where they're coming from, and you make sure they're part of the community.
So there is a way that we measure how we build safe places for our students, and you guys are really familiar with the dashboard at this point. But really, when we look at safe places for students, we really dig into things like the suspension data. So do our kids feel safe with problem solving? Do they have the skills needed to resolve conflicts when they show up at school in appropriate ways? Attendance rates, we can also see when we have high attendance rates and low chronic absenteeism rates. That's an indicator that kids want to be at school and feel safe being at school. We also have, and it's not necessarily called out on the California dashboard, but we do use our local climate data. We do give a student survey every year, and that's for students in grades 3rd through 12th grade. We do a family survey and then also a staff survey, and that's a way that we measure climate and culture at our school as well. So go ahead, yeah, thank you. So in terms of some of the things that we've seen where we're measuring our belonging and access for our staff. So in our staff survey for this year, you can see our strengths are listed and some growth areas. I wanted to pull out a couple of specific data points just to kind of give you a snapshot into what the response is in terms of belonging and safety at school. So when staff is asked that they feel like they belong at Natomas Charter School, 96% either agree or strongly agree, which is a great indicator. Another data point is people at this school care about me as a person. 95% of our staff feel that way. So that's an indicator that we are creating safe and welcoming spaces for our staff. And while we're not necessarily talking about staff who feel safe, help kids feel safe. So that's an important indicator for us as well. We'll get into the growth areas a little bit more in our presentation in terms of what we're doing with this feedback moving forward. When we take a look at student climate and culture data, the trends are up on the screen for you. I wanted to call out a data point across each of our 5 academies. So we did ask our students in grades 3rd through 12th, I feel like I belong. That's the statement. So do you agree, strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree? At Star Academy, 82% of our students feel like they do belong. HAC students feel 90% of our students feel that they belong. At Leading Edge, 85% of our students feel they belong. PFAA is 80% and ECA is 87%. And then again, we'll address those growth areas moving forward. We're also really interested in what our families at NCS feel about our climate and culture and sense of belonging for their students. A couple of data points to share is when asked, people of different cultural backgrounds, races, or ethnicities get along well at the school, 96% of parents said they agree or strongly agree. Another statement of my student feels like they belong at this school, 91% of families stated that their student feels that they belong at this school. Again, good indicators that we're doing some good work across our campuses.
Okay, and then it comes to the LCAP. I made Petra do the dashboard slide, but I now have to come back to the LCAP. This you've seen in our LCAP update, but we are always focused on what we've set out in our strategic plan, our LCAP goals, which align with our WASC goals. And so, we are spending a good amount of money making sure that our students are doing well, and not just that overall our students are doing well, but each individual subgroup we're focused on and we're working on, because we want all students to be learning and growing and developing. And then if you look at, Petra talked about the school culture with our PBIS and lots of things we're working there. And then our fourth goal is attract and retain highly qualified and diverse staff through a strong school culture. And that is something that we are trying to ensure. And that's something that I'd say all schools know is a key thing, is that you want your staff to, as much as possible, reflect the demographics of your school so that students can see themselves in the staff. So, those are the things that we have been doing and are continuing to do to make sure that everyone is feeling safe and supported and getting the growth that they need. Next one. All right, so we have quite a few action areas that we work on as far as making sure that Natomas Charter School is inclusive. So we'll be talking about these different things, anywhere from what are we doing with adults for professional development, to students with their arts productions and their curriculum, leadership opportunities, our ELOP program, which is the before and after school, supplementary enrichment, and then finally to our DEI community. Okay. Oop, that's still me, just kidding. Okay, so moving on to our, an exemplified example of this is our theme for the year is all are welcome. So it's really a focus on inclusion and making sure that all students are engaged, right? All staff are engaged and feel like they belong. So we've had a variety of things where we are starting the year talking about school culture, how to be inclusive, then recognizing unconscious bias. Everybody has it, right? So how do you know when you are preferring one thing over the other, right? And then looking at a self-survey to say, okay, what are the areas that I want to grow in? And then we're going to be assessing our growth, because it's that teaching cycle of plan, do, study, and act. And so we are always looking at how can I grow as a person to be better for my students every day. So looking at the professional development, we started the year with supporting students in politically diverse times because we had the election. We knew that would be something that would be tenuous in our community, right? And so, we just jumped into that. We're trying to be very proactive and not reactionary with our students and our staff. We've done the PBIS. We had staff do de-escalation training so that when students start getting escalated, how do they help them calm down? We're seeing a higher level of that coming with the younger students, and so really helping staff to know how to do that in an appropriate way. We through the Sac County Office of Education and Amy, we've gone to we brought a cohort of I think 8 or 9 people going to the Inclusion Academy. So we've been meeting with other schools, with experts from Placer County Office of Education, looking at the special education data, looking at is there overlap between our English learners and our special education students. So really looking at a deep dive into what are we seeing with our students and what are the struggles they're doing. And then we've done a plethora of book studies from the writing rope to building thinking classrooms to crucial conversations that Dr. Locteth is doing with the campus monitors to, I'm sure there's others. We've read a whole bunch of books. So we, giving staff that chance to learn and grow as well. Looking at our curriculum, we are always expanding our libraries. We have a library on each campus. And Ms. Kelly, who is kind of the head librarian, she was sharing with me, I had to write it down. We have added over 1,000 books to our various libraries this year. In this one alone, the one here at Black Rock, there were 273 nonfiction books. So we're really trying to get students to start delving into that nonfiction. She works with the teachers on curriculum. So if the students are studying a certain thing, she'll work to make sure that we have a collection. And so then here are some books that go along with what you're studying in your science class, your history class, and so then they can delve deeper into the topics and build their love of reading. And the kids are checking out books. I think the average is anywhere from 4 books per student to like 20 books per student, depending on the campus. The libraries are really encouraging that literacy. Let's see. Oh, and they're diversifying their collections as well, because we want our collection to reflect our community, right? And they do different displays. Is exemplified right behind me, the Autism Acceptance Month, right? And so we have autistic students that are here at our school, and we want everyone to feel represented and seen so that others can learn more about it. Let's see, working with multicultural units, we have our Ethnic Studies program, which is a focus on California communities. I think Jeff Pollard presented on that before, but it's really looking at like, what are the communities that we have in California and what are the different cultures and how do you learn about that so that as you're interacting in your life, you understand how to different people's perspectives. All right, and then we go to future.
You can also see a list of the different productions we've offered at PFAA recently. While these are just great productions in themselves, really these provide our students opportunities to grow in the areas of empathy, cultural awareness, creativity, and critical thinking. This also features a lot of diverse storytelling in terms of the range of identities, backgrounds, and experiences. So our students are being exposed to these things through productions as well. We also offer quite a few, this is just a small sample of the community events that we've offered recently. And the benefits of hosting these is to really foster that connection, that cultural understanding amongst our students. Definitely building on the inclusion and then also the educational equity. So while these just look like fun activities, really there's a much deeper and intentional meaning behind each of them. We do offer students, and again, this is just a small snapshot of all the leadership opportunities that we have for our students. These types of opportunities really empower our students to be change makers. So we're really building on those skills of leading with a purpose, being critical thinkers, and building on those advocacy skills.
So this year we kind of restructured how the counseling was doing their thing. We have a specific designated counselor just for middle school and high school, and that's really for, I'll tell you right now, I'm a high school and middle school teacher, and their needs are different, right? And I think having the counselors with their designated population, they can really hone in on that age development for the appropriateness, right? What a 7th grader may think is an emergency is not necessarily what a 11th grader thinks is an emergency, right? How you speak to them are 2 totally different ways, right? So that has been really helpful this year. As a teacher, it is so helpful to have them come out to the classes and really get intertwined and know their students and just be focused on those students, right? And they overlap here and there when they need to be, but those are their kids and that's who they're helping. And I think it's been a great aspect of change this year, and I hope we can do that.
And then you all know I like to talk about ELOP. That's my jam. And it's not all applesauce and milk cartons. It's serious business over here. So our expanded learning opportunities provides our students and targeted populations for tutoring opportunities, mentoring, and enrichment. Previously, students, I'll just call it Star Academy, it was really only the families who could afford these enrichment opportunities could attend. With ELOP funding, we've actually been able to offer programming for all of our students. So we've removed that barrier. And in addition to that, we use some of our ELOP funding for summer boosts. So how do we really support those students in not losing any of the skills they've gained between the 2 schools?
Woo, we're just flip-flopping here, keeping you guys awake. All right, staff recruiting and retention. This is something that I've been working with Anita and the HR team on, and really looking at, how do we get fabulous staff here? How do we continue to grow the education field? Because there's kind of a lack of eligible teachers out there looking for jobs right now. So we've partnered with UC Davis, Sac State, the Sac County Office of Education has quite a few credentialing programs, as well as Marshall Teacher Residency, to get as many people as we can into the teaching profession. So we've been supporting that. They're now actually, the Sac County is rolling out a CTE program, so that's exciting. So we're looking forward to that in the future. And then really just making sure that we are recruiting, we're posting not only on EdJoin, but other places, so that, or not posting, but advertising at different places so that more people hear about the jobs. I don't know if any of you know, but it seems like only people who are already in education know about EdJoin. And if you're new to education, you don't know to go there to look. So, you have to broaden your scope if you want different people to look. And then, of course, the picture at the bottom is we worked with it. Actually, Anita was the instigator for this year of working with the charter schools, a group of charter schools, to have our charter school career fair. And it's an opportunity where we hosted at Star Academy and had 14 or so charter schools, and it was all job fair. And it was great not only for candidates to be able to come to see all the charter schools, but it was really great for all of us to build community and make connections amongst the charter schools. It was super fun. So if you go to the next one, looking to past titles, we started our first staff-initiated DEI committee, back in May and June of 2020. And along our twisty road here, we're all the way to 2025, is we have focused on a lot of different things, from creating resolutions and policies to breaking subgroups and doing some professional development, really enhancing student voice and choice along the way. And then the last couple of years, we have really focused on community feedback. And last year we did a lot with based on the culture survey, doing some parent listening sessions and some student listening sessions to find out more. So you look at the data and you say, oh, this is an interesting data point. Let's pull in some kids and ask them questions about it. And so you get more detail, more input. So that's been very helpful. And then that was enacted over the last summer to be implemented for this school year. And so to talk about what we're doing this year, I am going to introduce Jenny and Taryn to talk about our current activities.
Okay, so every single academy is taking a deep dive into what DEI looks like on their campus. And so I'm here to give you just a snapshot of what work we're doing within DEI at Star Academy. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Star Academy, and I not only have been a part of the professional development as an educator on the campus, but then also coming in with the lens of being on the DEI committee and doing further work for all campuses, which will be spoken about by Jenny in just a moment. And for Star Academy, our work with DEI has been long going, but the really deep dive focused work has started about a year and a half ago, back in the spring of 2024. A year, school year wise, a year and a half. So back in spring of 2024, we had 3 sessions that were facilitated by our DEI consultant, Nakua Ramsey. This is where we had a 3-session really coming together to start slow to eventually go fast. And what that looked like was building relationships with each other as a staff and making sure that we were connected. The great thing about these sessions is that it was something that brought us as staff members together but very much something we can take back and build our community within our classrooms. And I think that is something that was very powerful, that it not only connected staff, but it can also be utilized to connect staff with students. We also took a self-reflection survey, focusing on items like implicit bias and doing a self-reflection of where do I stand in my beliefs and what have my experiences been and how might that lead into the classroom. To essentially check yourself and to think, where can I improve? What am I doing well? But what are the areas that I need to focus on? After we started those spring sessions, jumping into this current school year of 2024 to 2025, we took an even deeper dive into that survey. We created a individual focus plan based on that survey. There were 6 domains, and in every domain, we essentially went through glows and grows. What are you doing well? But what are some things that we could improve upon based on how we rated ourselves within the survey? Along with that, we all took on an accountability person. So someone to hold us accountable so that when we make these actionable steps, we have a soundboard, someone to talk with, and then also to make sure that the work is continuously happening, because this is very important work that we need to do. Including the individual focus, we talked as a whole group. So not only reflecting on ourselves, but how are we working together as a whole staff, including classified and certificated staff. Our whole group discussion was an open reflection of ourselves, being very vulnerable and understanding that we come from all different walks of life, but sharing that information and being open with one another, that we can learn from one another, and that to know that we aren't all perfect, but we all are here to be for the students and to make ourselves better to support them. Because as we talked about, our staff is very diverse, but also our student population is extremely diverse. How can we do the work on ourselves to best support them? Part of the work that we continue on to do this school year was having classroom walkthroughs and observations, which included Akua Ramsey. We had individual consultation opportunities where teachers would say, this is the goal that I am working on based off of my self-reflection. Could you come and observe me during this time and give me some feedback? It could be about a certain particular situation, but there's opportunity for that support if needed and wanted. We had a gallery walk of our individual DEI strategies based on our goals. It's a little celebration of all the great work that is being done, but also the work that we want to continue to do, because it doesn't just stop with one professional development session, that this is continuous work, just as we are lifelong learners. And then recently, last week, we communicated to all of our staff what our action plan is for next year, based off of the listening sessions that Jenny will speak to in just a moment, letting the staff know that their voice is heard and valued, and that we are making actionable steps forward to best support the staff, culture and community, as well as for our students' focus.
Okay, so in order to foster the diverse and inclusive, positive learning environment for students, we had to assess what staff, faculty needed so they could feel confident and strong and equipped to reach all students, right? That was the biggest thing. Taryn and I wanted to continue those initiatives from last year, carry that over this year. Last year we did the student sessions. This year we wanted to really kind of hone in on staff to get them the training or supports or resources that they needed. So in order to do that, which was a lot of work, we had to kind of divide and conquer a little bit. We were able to designate site leaders for each campus. And then we got some listening sessions, and one for PFA, 2 for STAR, one included classified and the other was certificated, to kind of give the opportunity for that safe space for organic conversations. All of the sessions were led by Akua, the DEI consultant. The questions on the surveys were from our yearly culture surveys that we complete as staff, right? And the questions, I think there was about 5. A lot of the feedback during the listening sessions came up to 2 themes. PD, professional development, and behavior interventions, right? Regarding professional development, a lot of staff felt as though there were just surface level sessions. They wanted a deep dive, and there wasn't enough time to get that deep dive because we were jumping from sessions to sessions or different trainings. Regarding the training, there was a little bit of gaps here and there, and again, wanted more of a deep dive. So that was the big one, and then the next one was behavior interventions. A lot of staff felt as though there was inconsistency. They wanted more training with restorative practices and framework across campuses. So those are the biggest things. So after the listening sessions, what do we do with that data? We kind of collected that data, summarized it up, and then we met with each of our administrators and parents in the
So once we had all the session completed and we gathered all the data, each site leader group from every campus met with their principal and vice principal to go over the data. And so we went through the information, looked at what are things that our staff are saying that we are in need, and we created an action plan. And so we went through each of that information with our admin, and then for example, what we talked about for STAR, we then communicated with our staff. These are the common areas that came up within our listening session, and this is our plan to address that, or ways that we already have started to address those items, which happened for STAR Academy. So it was great to have that conversation with an array of educators and paraprofessionals, along with our admin, to make sure that we are finishing our year strong, but we have even more action plan and steps that involve clear feedback from our staff members to get ready even for the next school year. For upcoming, Jenny and I are in the process of connecting with our site leaders from ECA and PACT before the end of the school year to make sure that those sessions will be completed as was our original goal. So we're going to make sure that that happens. And then once we have all sessions done, we want to make sure that this work continues, that we have these actionable steps moving forward for all campuses. So we have that within the plan for the 25-26 school year. Moving into the fall, we will be meeting as a whole DEI to make sure that we are aligned as a whole NCS site, that this isn't just STAR Academy or PFAA, but that is all 5 campuses, that we come together looking at the data so we know where we're moving further from there.
Thank you, Taryn. And then just to finish up on moving into next school year, we are really intentional with our principals in developing 3-year scope and sequences for professional learning and addressing the student needs based on the data that we have and tracking this data along the way. So we're being a little more intentional with that and creating a longer plan instead of year-by-year plan. We're also going to be moving into PBIS Tier 2 implementation. I've done a presentation about PBIS Tier 1, and that's really like, what are the expectations across all campuses? How do we teach it, reteach it, reinforce it? And then if that's not working, what do we do for that next step, for that next 15% of our students who aren't quite hit from Tier 1? So that'll be the next step of work with PBIS. And then we just finished a series of 4 sessions learning about restorative practices with our counselors, with our deans at PFAA, and our administrators as well. I'm excited to share that today we met with our PFAA administrators to talk about all of the restorative practice training that we sat in and what that can look like moving forward. So we're starting those conversations as we start planning for next year as well. Before I take questions, though, I really have to commend Jenny and Taryn. These are teachers who are 100% committed, and they hassle me and Laura like, hey, we gotta get together, and I love it. And you really are champions for our staff across all 5 academies and our students. So I wanted to commend you on that. So thank you for doing that. Thoughts, questions, comments?
I have a question. Taryn and Jenny, when I'm trying to get at, you have these action plans now, and I'm curious about the step when you went back and talked to the administrators, because about the goals and the actions for the upcoming year. Like, did something get resolved where there's like space? Do you feel like you have space and resources to complete those actions? It's great, like I know you've outlined action plans. There's been, I'm curious, like throughout that process, was there like some give or something to allow for teachers to then take that next step in? Because I know we pile a lot on you all with different initiatives, you know, so I'm wondering if are we set up for success on the action plans, or was there anything learned about that process?
In my experience, so far, because we have followed through with making those action plans, I quickly realized that so much of what already is planned out, especially to what Pedro was talking about with the tier 2 interventions, that there are already plans and steps ahead that will support what came out of the sessions. Maybe not everything, but for the majority of what we're looking to resolve and to support staff members and ultimately students with, it's already in the works. And so I think the biggest part is making sure we're utilizing staff members who are willing to step up and support, to be instructional coaches, to support our staff members with not just the push for tier 2 supports, but really codifying practices within tier 1 supports. And so we already are on the go forward with that, like we're ready to do that. So I found that it wasn't as difficult as maybe some may think it is, because we already have plans in place to address that. So it was nice to see what are things that are already in motion, and then looking about how it aligns even for next year already in thought from our admin team.
One more quick one. Jenny, you mentioned the trainings, going deep on some of that was like request. How was that? Can you expand on that a little bit about how that feedback was received, and were there any positive shifts to where not only we have action plans, but you'll have training that may be more receptive to help teachers?
Yeah, well, I think it was no secret of how staff was feeling, because again, the plans moving forward were kind of already in place. So I mean, that speaks to how, I guess, in tune our directors and our admin are. So kudos to you guys. So as far as the deep training, I'll give you an example. One of the common ones was talking about SPED training, right? Like, what do we do with my specific content, right? What is an accommodation versus modification, things like that. And then, so when I spoke to my admin, we kind of talked about having SPED team come in for meetings, and they started doing that during our Wednesday morning meetings, and we give you little snippets here and there, and we talked about what does a parent need when they come into my classroom? Okay, here's a paper on what I expect and what I need for the kids to have the supports. So it was already in place, and we're going, so hopefully we'll see how it goes.
Can I just add to what you guys said? I mean, you did a fine job, but we're talking with the principals all the time, right? And helping them with, kind of talking through the different plans and different things. And what I heard from the principals that had these conversations was this is great. The discussion added depth to where we were already heading, and a little bit more, it embellished and gave us more information. And it's also, I feel like they were excited because they had staff who were so excited about doing these things and seeing the same things, and that they were on the same path. So I think, sometimes we worry, when you're going to your boss and you're like, hey, here's these changes, how's that gonna go? But I feel like, everybody was kind of on the same page, and so it was just additional information and support.
It's a healthy conversation.
Yeah.
Done.
My turn?
Yeah.
That part with SPED team, you said accommodation versus what?
Modifications.
Modification, thank you. Question. When you had mentioned those different student, family, and staff surveys, do you know what population or percentage responded?
The number of responses, is that what you're saying? I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'm happy to get that for you.
I was curious.
I can give you a general, just because I swim in that data all the time. But we had about 80% of students that participated. We had parents, I think we had 300, around 300 that participated. And then staff, I think we had maybe 80. something like that? I mean, we can get the exact numbers,
No,
but,
that was good.
okay.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. It's data, you know, sometimes you put it out there and I'm like, okay, of what? That sounds great.
Spent an hour in it today, so.
You had mentioned, I think that was one of y'all too, sorry, I forgot the names.
That's okay.
Self-reflection survey, talked about implicit biases. Were there any like salient implicit biases or themes that came from those self-reflections that, I mean, I know you talked about the SPED team, some of those academic type of things. I know I've heard a lot across the different districts or school campuses that I work with, like when it comes to administrating or implementing or maintaining IEP or 504s, there's different, like, you know, you get this plan and then it's like, oh my God, this is one student of 30, you know, and I'm trying to accommodate or modify certain things within the classroom for the student. So I'm just wondering, like, were there any salient, implicit, like biases or themes that came out that you could expand on?
I can't speak for everyone because everyone's self-reflection was different, so it depended on, I would assume, and this is assumption, apologies for that, but it really does depend on your experience and knowledge of how to support certain populations of students. And so depending on your experience or exposure, could depend on where you stand and your feelings towards that. And that was part of the reflection of what experience do you have and can we talk about that? Does your experience or lack thereof hinder your ability to support all students? And so that's more of the reflection piece. So I can't speak to what came from it because you know, we would work with our accountability partners. And so I know a small group within my accountability partners rather than everyone's levels of how they self-reflected within that survey. But there was great conversation that did come out of it because as Jenny kind of touched on, we did have Amy and Francesca in our SPED department come in to speak on the SPED department as a whole of what are the differences between accommodations and modifications and what does that look like in the classroom. So educating, giving all of the staff members tools to see the lens, the bigger lens, in order to make a better judgment call of how to support different students. I don't know if that it will answer your question, but it all depends on everyone's experience.
Yeah.
Those are individual reflections, and it wasn't like it all went into a data bank.
So there was, but there were no themes. Is that what you were asking? Were there
Yeah, I mean,
themes
it's
or
kind of going along with what
commonalities?
Arsenio asked as
yeah,
far
the
as like,
themes-
how are we moving things forward? You know, I'd asked like the last board meeting, like what are some of the measurable, you know, ways of holding this work accountable, you know? So I'm seeing a lot of great stuff here that answers a lot of that. So I'm just curious, you know, according to like some of those themes, like what are we doing specifically, you know, to kind of like continue to move that needle forward? Are we supported? Like, do we have allocation of the appropriate amount of resources and funds? Obviously, that's what we talk about as far as budgets, so.
I think exactly what you're touching on are a part of the next steps. I think what we've done so far in the work is just touching the surface to really understand where do we stand as individuals, then to come together as a site, then to come together as an MCS whole. It kind of just goes on together, but this work is continuous and can go deeper and deeper and in different forms. So in what we've accomplished, at least within the year, is, you know, staff to staff, but then for my example of Star Academy, within just our site, it's very different work, but overall very focused for how do we better support our students and how do we better support ourselves to be good for the students.
Yeah, excellent.
And to add to that, you know, for example, at Star Academy, they were focusing on universal design for learning. So really looking at how can you make sure that what you're doing in the classroom, you know, is appropriate and impacts the students. What are the best practices that you can use? And so they were working on that. I know our EL TOSA came in to talk about like, how do you structure, you know, English learner designated time? You know, what, talking about literacy. We were doing some alignment of what is the literacy strategies we have when a student is struggling. And all of that builds into looking at the work from different students' lenses, right? So if you have a fifth grader who is, 3 grade levels below in their reading, how do you support that student in still learning the fifth grade material, but giving them structures and supports through like universal design for learning, or understanding what their perspective is as they're trying to, tackle the content. So I think it's very organic, and it's woven into it as we look at our data. I know that impacts a lot of, okay, what are the groups that are not doing well? How can, that's what you're focusing on. Just in hearing from different people that were talking about their goals and what they were reflecting on. Looking at in my class, where do I need to learn and grow?
This is excellent. Yeah, thank every one of y'all, and I know we'll be a model for a lot of those other districts that need this,
Well, before you leave though, I wanted to also thank you for your work and to give some kudos to Jeff Pollard, ethnic studies class. He brings in a variety of folks from different backgrounds, California homegrown folks that are part of our history. So gosh, for the last, how long has that been going on? 2 or 3 years now? 3 years. 3 years, okay. So for the last 3 years, he's invited me to come and speak to the 9th grade ethnic studies class, where I talk about my background in picking grapes, and then my educational journey, how I got from carrying the water to my siblings in the fields to getting a PhD and being a college professor, now retired, but still. And so, what strikes me is how thoughtful the kids are. The kinds of questions they ask me, they blow me away. Sometimes it's about, well, what happened to my siblings, and sometimes it's, broader pictures and just great questions, just a lot of good interaction. So, and I know someone else followed after me. I did the Latino perspective, and then she brought one of our teachers from a Filipino background to talk about. And so that kind of goes together when you talk about the UFW. So kudos to him and everyone else, but it's really a thrill to come to campus and meet these young people and see how sharp they are and open, so I know it's making a difference. So, yeah. Any other comments?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
It might be kind of tailored towards Arsenio and you guys' questions. So now that you've implemented this process amongst your team members, how is it, when you're implementing it within the classroom setting, how is it evaluated? I know you touched on it a little bit, but just curious of how it's evaluated within.
So our hope is long-term, right, is having, our DEI and kind of laid out in our scope and sequences. So when teachers are meeting with their administrators for eval or portfolio or something like that, you can go in a classroom and observe and, okay, are they hitting this goal? Are they reaching all the students by X, Y, and Z? So that's our long-term goal to get to that point, but it is there.
And ultimately, when you look back, you want to uphold the pillars that, we've been talking about in this whole presentation. That really is the root of what we're doing and the work that we're accomplishing here, to make sure that we do feel included and that there is a place for everyone, that all are really welcome. And so what work can we do? And that goes into all the different layers, the universal design learning, UDL, going into having these conversations from as small as community builders and icebreakers and bringing everyone together, but also having the supports and ability to have tough conversations depending on the levels and maturity of the students, of course. But all of those skills that are needed, we want to make sure that our staff have the tools in their tool belt to facilitate conversations, but also to continue to build the communities that we have in our classroom. So I think ultimately everyone wants to be seen, heard, felt cared for and loved. And ultimately, if you look at the pillars, that's what we're doing. And so we're just continuing that work. So in the students essentially are wanting that. So if we can get that for them, that's half the battle, Then comes the learning, because they have the buy-in, they feel safe, they're willing to try, and to have open conversations about either life lessons, experiences, or being open to learning of others' experiences that they might not have heard or seen before.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
And I think it is really clear that, you know, when you're assessing and talking with the teacher as they're reflecting, you know, if they're truly taking on those goals, and you see that when you walk into the classroom and you see that, you know, students that are maybe, you know, prone to be disengaged because of, you know, maybe a challenge or whatever, right? Whenever it's something that's hard, we disengage, right? That's like a human thing. You're like, oh, not gonna do that, right? No more golfing for me, you know? But you know, but like, you know, and so if you walk in and you see that teacher having those students engaged when you know this is a struggle for them, that's it, you know, that's where you can see it, you know, that's where the rubber really hits the road. Is when you walk in and you can see that care and that concern and you know, the students checking in with them. I'm gonna use an example from when I went and observed Taryn, a student came in from another classroom that had to do a little reflection. I don't know what was the situation, but she like welcomed the child in, she had a little spot for them, they're doing the reflection, she goes over, she checks in with them, like has a, you know, a little moment, you know, it's everybody else is doing their thing and then the child goes back to class. And it's, you know, that individualizing and that care and that, you know, attention, you know, that child probably had some trouble in another class, right? Otherwise, why would they be sent out as my assumption, right? And was doing a reflection, but walked out of that room, you know, having reflected, feeling confident and with a smile, you know, and somebody who cares about him, who's not even his teacher, right? So I think that's where you see it. And so it's really apparent in those scenarios.
It becomes an all, not me in my room, but it is really all are welcome, no matter which teacher or classroom you're in or whatever passing. It really is important.
That's amazing. Great.
Can I just have one?
Yes,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean, and going back to the surveys, I mean, were there other questions that were related to inclusion and belonging that maybe, I know a lot of things go into that beyond what you're doing here as a whole, like you said, campus effort that will need to really achieve some of these broader goals. But were there other questions that we could use to say like, okay, if at PFAA, 80% of the students said that they felt like they belonged or you know, welcomed or whatever the question was. Like, is this something where we're looking to like, you know, 5 years down the road, like get that up to like a 90? I'm curious about the other questions to see if there's other markers of questions that we could say like, okay, we probably can't connect the interventions or whatever it is, policies to each other, but generally speaking, you know, our PFAA inclusion sort of, you know, surveys have gone up based on the broader campus culture.
Were you watching us earlier today?
No.
Because.
Yeah, we really nailed that.
Right?
It's like we have this plan. It's funny when things just come together. So it was interesting, Laura and I were meeting with Mr. Love and Ms. Predel at PFAA, and we were going over the survey data with them, especially this data point about the 80% feel like they belong. That survey has, you're the data, how many questions are on there?
It's gotta be 75 questions. It's
And
long.
there's buckets, so there's like school safety, school belonging, school involvement. They're buckets. And what we decided as a team today is I'm curious about digging into that data. So if 80% of our kids, and Laura like broke it down by grade level. And so we looked at some of the lower areas. And so I'm gonna be setting up listening sessions with some of our juniors and seniors after spring break. And what I'm gonna do in terms of finding out the questions is I'm gonna pull the data from the other questions. So if there's something about like, I don't feel safe at school, maybe I'll create a question about like, tell me about safety at school, and just really help it to be like an open dialogue with some of our students. And then that way I think that can inform some of our practices moving forward. So just having more of a conversation.
And we looked at last year's data and we were digging back and looking at what's the change and
What they're doing is kind of important because what I've seen historically, having been a data person myself too, is that especially at the middle and high school level, what the kids are experiencing in the outside world bleeds into the school. So using I don't feel safe at school, when you start unpacking that, what you find out is it's actually a fear of like school violence based on what they're seeing on the news. Not necessarily like school violence at Natoma Charter School,
Yeah.
but like the perception of school violence, right? And then trying to figure out, okay, then what supports do we put around that?
Which is why there's so much value to the listening sessions, because it gives the students a chance to speak their voice and to say what they need to say. And it gives the context for exactly what Joe was talking about.
And I just want to say for the record, that was in for example, our students actually rate, one of our strengths is school safety and emergency preparedness, so. I know, that was one of our strengths, so I don't want anybody worrying about that, that was just a for example. I was like, let me double check my data here, but yeah, so that's actually on all 3 sets of surveys, it's safe.
And I will say, like, looking at all the percentages, and happy to sit down with you and like go over some of the data, but it's pretty strong data. I mean, there's definitely areas that we can improve, but there's nothing glaring that it's like, oh my gosh, we have a really big problem with this thing. So it's good. I mean, it's overall positive data across all 5 of our academies.
Yeah. Well, and even belonging, we were looking at like what are national norms and California norms, and they're around 50%.
Right, yeah.
You know, and we're at 80. So we're not satisfied with 80, but we're doing all right.
Take it.
Right? Like
Yeah.
big picture.
A good start.
Right? Yeah. We're graduating them, they feel like they belong, you know, like it's kind of good.
Well, thank you so much
Thank you,
for
guys.
all your work. All right, so Dr. Joe Wood, enrollment report.
Totally different topic, enrollment reports. So this is just our monthly enrollment report. We're at that point in the year where we kind of pause on enrollment because we're, trying to get things finished up for graduation, CAS testing, all that sort of fun stuff. So as of what's in here is our enrollment as of March 31st. So we had 264 at Leading Edge, we're still sitting there. We had 113 at PAC, we're actually at 112 as of today. At PFA, we had 751, but we've actually brought a couple kids in, so we're at 753. Star Academy still sitting at 601, and ECA still sitting at 116.
Any questions, comments? All right, and then ethics training for board members.
Yes, so for this item, this final item, Science, Eve and I are actually looking for a little direction from you all. So there was an assembly bill, 2158, that requires that basically, long story short, K-12 boards did not have to participate in the same type of ethics training that other types of boards did have to participate in the past. But with this particular bill, that changed. And so you all have to participate in 2 hours of ethics training every 2 years. And the first time you have to do it is by January 1st, 2026. So there's different ways that we can do this. We could bring in an outside facilitator and we could, have a study session and do 2 hours of ethics training. It's 2 hours, but we're all together and we all get it. We can ask the presenter questions and that sort of thing. Another option is that there are free online training modules that are available. We have one through, and I hear Nita already over here saying free. There is free online training modules available. There's one that through Public School Works, for instance, that some of us have been working our way through. They are self-paced. You do them on your own. I'm going to tell you though, if you have ADHD like I do, it's really hard to do. I'm not through mine yet. I get distracted very easily by whatever the latest thing is I have to deal with. So point being, you all have to do it by January 1st, and Siba will be hounding you. The question where we need a little bit of direction is, do you guys have a preference? Do you want to do like a study session and we bring someone in, or do you all want to commit to doing it individually through these online classes? We're willing to spend some money to bring someone.
I was going to ask you, what would that run? How much would that cost?
It depends on who does it, but it's probably in the neighborhood of like $1,500 typically when we brought in
For the
like legal
12.
counsel to do like a workshop with you guys and stuff. Yeah. But we also, I'll be clear, you guys are volunteers. Your time is valuable. Spending $1,500 to bring in an outside facilitator is money well spent, and at the very least is a little bit of thank you that we can show you for all the work that you put into these board members.
What do y'all think?
Do you have the ability to identify, I'm trying to think of the ethics buckets, probably there's a general curriculum that they need to follow, but you can sometimes work with your facilitator or your instructor to focus on certain.
The law does have a requirement, like certain topics, but they're broad. They're very broad things, yeah.
So if we're gonna spend time, it says 2 hours.
But it is like an actual 120 minutes.
And an option could be, since we're missing a couple of our board members today, I could tomorrow or later this week, send out a doodle of sorts. And just kind of polling all of you to see which way you prefer to go, and then do like majority wins kind of style. Or you all can make a decision right now and tell the other two that's what's happening.
Yeah, because they're not here. But then it would be, if we went with the 2 hour, then it would be a matter of scheduling.
We would do it probably at one of our board meetings.
Oh, at one of our
Yeah,
board. Okay, so it wouldn't be additional time.
No, maybe,
Oh,
you know, maybe like a 3 hour board meeting, you know, just because we gotta do some other stuff too.
Right,
but
right,
yeah. And really, it's 2 hours no matter what you do. So
Right,
2
right.
hours in person, 2 hours online,
Right.
it's 2 hours.
I like the idea of
There's no, like, fun ethics, like-
interaction.
I know, is there some team building?
Yeah, I like that.
Ethics activities?
I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah,
we
that's
can
what I'm
coordinate
saying,
things.
Yeah.
There's like always niche, like, people who make it a little bit.
I think in person would be good.
Yeah, I would
Make
vote
in
for
person
that too.
too.
Okay, so we can reach out to our,
We can struggle
our
together.
people.
Right.
See what else is maybe. We can look at Young Marine Corps and CSDC as well. Yeah.
Oh, if Lisa does it, she'll make it fun.
Yeah, she will. Okay, thank you guys. That's all we need. We just need a little bit of direction there where you want us to head.
Very good, thank you, Jill. All right, and hearing of the public for items not on the agenda?
Nothing received with me and no one online.
Okay, so that was, not, okay, and hearing of the public for items on the agenda?
Also nothing received with me and no one online.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, Dr. Wood, comments?
Yeah, so a few things. So in about 24 hours from now, we will all be wrapping up the Multicultural Festival at Star Academy. So it's a great embodiment of all the diversity, equity, inclusion we were talking about earlier. We have our 3rd annual Multicultural Festival, which I know Arsenio was like, should I be on the board? Should I not be on the board? And he went to the Multicultural Festival. He was like, I'm on the board. So definitely recommend, if your schedule allows, coming out for that tomorrow evening. And then the next day we hit spring break, which we are also, I think, counting down like 10 minutes until spring break. So campuses will be closed Wednesday, the 16th, and then through the following week, and everyone returns on April 28th, that Monday. During spring break, just the board should be aware, we actually have 3 groups traveling. So we have 2 different DC trips going on, and then we have a group traveling to China as well. Alicia Carter is actually part of the China group, so she can give us a little report when she gets back of what that experience was like. Also, and then when we return, just really keep an eye on your email, because it's gonna be like, boom, we're at the end of the year, and there's all sorts of promotions, graduations, celebrations, all the things going on. We also will be celebrating Educator Appreciation Week, the week of May 5th. So just as a little reminder to, send your child's teacher a note, thank you, that type of thing. That'll be the week of May 5th. And then the other exciting news is, we do have this huge $30 million project going here on the Black Rock campus, right? And we're navigating all the bureaucracy of that. But today we learned this afternoon about 4 o'clock, that our plans got completely reviewed by the Division of State Architect. And they've sent back their first round of comments. And so our architects and engineers are making their way through the comments, but they didn't see any huge 5-alarm fires, just as their sort of a initial glance at it. So that's pretty exciting. So they'll be working with AMS, who is our modular builder, to kind of go through the comments and see what things we need to do. But their hope is that we have approval by June, and then that would actually allow us to start the next part of the process, which is actually requesting funds from the grant in order to start phase 1. So still on track to potentially break ground summer 2026.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, any board of director comments? I was just going to mention that at Sac State in the College of Engineering and Computer Science, May 9th, during the day, it's a Friday, students are presenting senior projects in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science. And my question was, what would it take for kids to get permission or support to, for those who are interested in that, especially seniors, to do a field trip like that? What would be involved? Or get permission to go, or how does that
to
work?
get permission to go is super easy.
Yeah,
You actually have you can do an excused absence for attending a conference like that. That's very easy. To do a more organized field trip is a little bit more complicated. Mainly it's transportation. That's the big complication.
Right.
And the big expense.
Right.
And usually would require a month or so, sort of notice. But But yeah, I mean, like if you know of students who are interested in going, if they want to go on their own with their families or something.
Well, I was thinking of having the school, or I don't know which office, to let students know
Yeah.
that this is happening, so would that
If
be?
you send that information to Petra and I, we can make sure to get it to the high school counselors and they,
Yeah, I just think it's nice to
Yeah,
have
that's
that,
great
to
opportunity.
get that exposure. It's never too early for that, so, all right, future board agenda items? Okay, all right, then I guess I'll adjourn the meeting at 8:00.